That's all we need. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host Alex, and with me this week I have Dill. How are you, Dill?
G'day, mate. Doing good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Losing streaks broken for City. Unfortunately, yes. Not quite as positive a result as we could have had. And really, like thinking about it with both games, taking the lead in both instances could have been a much better points return than we ended up getting. But we'll talk about each game individually. But I think probably the Watford game had more positive signs than the Coventry game. I think would be fair to say. But we're kind of rapidly approaching the January window opening. So it's going to, I think, crystallize for Ruben where he needs to make those improvements in the January window. But we'll start with that Watford game. Took the lead reasonably late on. You must have been sitting there just like me thinking, geez, we're actually going to get a win here.
Yeah, it's exactly. And what was it like? 4 minutes later, came crashing down. But it was I felt pretty good this game. It was great. It was a good watch, I thought. And this was his first game back, I believe.
Yeah.
So I don't know that stats wise, what we got, we pretty much were pretty even across the board. 13 shots, 4 on target. 42% possession. I kind of felt like we actually might have had more possession, and I thought the same with the Coventry game. Now looking at the stats, but I don't know. I enjoyed this game a lot. We missed a few crucial chances there with I think Longman missing one in the first 2 minutes, and then there was another around the
20 minutes maybe. A bit later as well. Yeah. Which is interesting because I do feel like Longman, and again, he had chances against Coventry where, the glass half empty might say, oh, he's just not up to it. He's not producing, blah, blah, blah. But I think the glass half full, which I think is probably more where I sit, is it looks game on game as if he's really sort of getting back to his best and getting a bit more confidence with his players. So I think he's worth persisting with in that sense.
He's getting into the parts where we need him to be, like area wise, which is, I think we're able to make a few more, chances now with him being there. But now we're just going to close them out. It'd be a completely different game if he, struck the ball a bit better. And I don't know. Looking at sort of where Watford were on the table at the time going into that game, I think they were around 6th or maybe just outside of the playoff places. For us to be on the bottom of the ladder and come out with a draw, on paper that looks really good. But I thought we were hopefully the better team, I think.
Yeah, and I think like you say, despite having less possession, it felt like we had more of it because it just felt as if when we had the ball, we actually did a lot more with it. Like I know Ruben before that game had kind of said from our first game, we should be able to see what he wants the team to do and what he envisions the style being, which is very different from, Tim Volter needing 2+ months in charge to get his style across to the players. It's sort of almost much more instant impact. And I think we saw it was Palmer, I think at the first minute or the second minute, just swivels, plays a really good defense splitting through ball for Kamara, which I think actually led to that Longman chance. Where you could just sense with the crowd as well. Like the crowd just was suddenly like, oh, okay, here we go. We're actually getting forward quickly. We're actually creating chances. There's something to get excited about, which was, awesome to see. And I think, look, like you said, like with Watford being around the top 6, it reminds me a lot of the Blackburn game just before, where we were unable to break through and score the goal, where you sort of look at it and go, we've gone toe-to-toe with the side playing in the top 6, again against Watford. We've actually come away with a result against Watford. It does, Coventry are lower in the table, but I think they've got a much better squad than their position would suggest. But it does bode well we've got a few games coming up where you think if we can play to that level, we actually should be able to come away with something.
Yeah, definitely. And, with obviously the January window opening up, and we'll get to it anyways with potentially some rumours. But I think overall it felt like a pretty good game. And like I don't want to I don't want to, well, maybe not foreshadow, but like I think, like say last season when Rosie really started to hit form with, I guess, the squad and how the squad started to gel, you started seeing they were a bit more intuitive with the ball. And I don't want to say that we're there yet, but it compared to the last couple of months, the confidence is definitely there, raised to what it was before. But yeah, hopefully we just start getting a bit smarter with the ball, and as you mentioned before, a few of the crosses there around the start, and yeah, you create your luck, and hopefully we can capitalize on that.
Yeah, and I think the other player who deserves a mention is probably João Pedro, who,
Yeah.
it's I think it's a testament to Ruben, sort of working with what he's got, where a lot of people might look at that squad and say it's complete crap. Like we need a whole, 6, 7, 8 players in January to do anything. Whereas, with a few tweaks and with a few adjustments to how the players set up, you can actually get so much more out of what we've got. And I thought Pedro seemed to be dropping a lot deeper. Like his vision, like he doesn't have the legs to sort of break lines, and which he did try to do against Watford. I think really unfortunate to have a shot that was saved well by Bachmann, deemed to be a goal kick, which was suggesting that he missed the target when he certainly didn't. But he doesn't necessarily have the legs to break the lines. Despite that was actually a really good run from him. But he does sit deep. He's got the vision. He's spraying some passes around, and you kind of suddenly go, oh, hang on, this is a guy that was sometimes having 2 or 3 touches for a whole game under Volta. Suddenly, you get him the ball a bit more often, he can actually do a lot with it.
Yeah, and maybe that's a testament into obviously confidence being instilled into him, not so much his own confidence, but maybe Ruben's spoken to him and sort of told him what he needs out of him, and you start to see that across the board, across the other players, with how they're sort of gelling at the moment as well. And I don't know, yeah, overall it's great. And sorry, I was just looking at like I forgot that Casey Palmer got a yellow card around that.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I guess that was just a scuffle between him and Loser, great name. But yeah, I don't know. Like I kind of like that aggression from him, and he sort of reminds me, I guess, like some of his ball playing and sort of how he's sort of commanding around midfield reminds me a bit of Seri, but like maybe just a newfound aggression is probably good for us. I'm trying to think who the other sort of aggressive players that we sort of had in the last couple of years. Slater can get up there and whatnot.
I was going to say Slater can get in people's faces a little bit. I think I saw that Slater doesn't actually have a yellow card yet this season, which,
yeah, wow.
A purist might say that's a good thing that he's staying out of trouble, but you kind of say, like you're saying, I think Sellers or Ruben will definitely want a bit more aggression from the players, and we saw a bit more of it against Watford. But unfortunately, and actually speaking of Slater, it was probably Slater who needed to take down, forget which Watford player it was, who made that great run right at the end to assist their goal. You just think if someone clips his heels around halfway or as he's running into our half and brings him down for a free kick, that goal doesn't happen. And it's that late in the game that you probably just need those smarts and a bit of guile to actually to do that. And I'm hoping that Ruben actually would have spoken to the players afterwards and said, if you're getting a yellow card there, I'm happy. Like, don't worry about it. Like, if it saves us a goal, it's a good thing.
I missed that last part there. I just had a bunch of birds screaming at me.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just saying, if a player takes a yellow card there in the last few minutes to deny the opposition a goal, I'd say that the manager's probably going to be pretty happy with it. Yeah. So I'd hope that he's been talking to them about that since, because it was, I mean, look, I say that like we had a similar thing happen for the second goal for Coventry. So you'd hope that the players do start to get it. Because I think under Rosenia, we were a bit more of a nice team. And like you said, trying to think of the more aggressive players that we've had in recent years, and there haven't been that many. But it's definitely a side to our game that we need to get a bit smarter with.
Sort of, I guess it's in the name, attacking football. Yeah. So, yeah, I wonder. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, sort of to see how the players are evolving, and I guess it was a quick evolution, I guess, from Watford to Coventry. Coventry, I didn't think we had as good a game, but I think there was no lineup changes. Anyways, we'll get to Coventry in a second, but I I don't think there was any lineup changes, was there, between
No.
the two games? So they had a 2-day, 3-day turnaround, and that was kind of surprising, anyways, for me. But yeah, back to Watford.
Well, actually, I realized we haven't actually talked about the goal, and Bedia, it's one of those things where you say you want VAR in the Championship. Other times you say I'm quite happy not having VAR in the Championship because it definitely goes in off his arm from a Mellum shot. And it feels like that's the sort of goal. And it really, like, if we'd held on for a 1-0, that would have sort of typified how much luck can play a part in results, because you just think like it's just bundled in off his hand. You know, if that gives City a win, then you take it, because our luck's been against us all season. Very fortunate goal. I would say that. Yeah.
And we talk about luck every single episode, I think, and it's starting to change. And you create your luck. So but obviously 4 minutes later, I think we had Kamara come off between that. I think it was right after Kamara came off, and I'm not sure if that had much to do with it from memory, but Omer came on then, and I thought Omer sort of, like, I probably would have preferred to bring him on a little bit earlier, but I don't remember him doing too badly towards the end of the match there.
And votes for this one?
I'm gonna go. Let's go Palmer, Kamara, and it's a hard one.
Like, it's always the third player. It's always difficult. I feel like we have a lot of top two standouts in games.
Yeah, I'll probably go Pedro. Obviously. Pedro? Let's definitely go Pedro. Yeah.
I think I've got the same. Yeah, I've got the same three as you, just a different order. I've gone Kamara for the three, because I thought, again, like he was almost our most creative. Well, I think he was our most creative player. Like he puts the ball in the box that leads to the goal. He creates those chances for Longman early in the match as well. I think I don't know if he went off with an injury against Coventry. I guess we'll see. But I think he's definitely growing week on week as well. Pedro for the two, I thought, like I said earlier, I thought his positioning and his involvement in the game was really improved and really good to see. And then, Palmer for the one, who, I mean, I had that little scuffle in the first half and then controlled himself pretty well in the second half, and was, he's becoming one of our more important players. And so I think it's just about getting more consistent effort from him, because I think, as we'll talk about with the Coventry game, I don't think he was quite as strong in that one, but got the one vote here. So Coventry. So you sort of already, you touched on already. So no changes to the side, which was slightly, I guess, surprising given it's the third game in a week. But I can understand at the same time, first positive result, you go, let's give those guys another run out to sort of show what they've got. And actually, like, it's interesting. I've been listening to a few people talking about the game, saying how awful we were in that first half. But sitting there watching it, I actually thought for the first 5-10 minutes, like, so not much of the first half, granted, I actually thought we looked really good, and like we were holding the ball well, we're passing it around with confidence, like you were talking about last season with Rosenia and the confidence in passing. We actually looked quite good, and then we just, I don't know what happened. Coventry just got on top, and for the rest of that first half, just about had us sort of sat back in our half.
Yeah, it seems like, I think they're sort of on their own championship journey at the moment, especially with their squad and where they probably should be sitting, and I guess they kind of just like snuffed us out throughout the rest of the game there, but the first, like you said, the first 10 minutes or so, it looked pretty good. Trying to think, but what time was this game? I'm trying to think when I watched it. It
would have been 10:30 for you. It was an 11:30 game for us. Yeah.
So trying to remember the standouts in sort of what happened around that, and
because really, like, it was it was pretty non-existent from our perspective until Pedro scored that goal just before half-time.
Yeah.
Again, Kamara putting the ball in the box, and really Longman should be doing better. I mean, he heads it against the post from pretty much right. Like, it's almost harder to miss than what he did. And you sort of fortuitously falls to Pedro for the goal. And then you sort of think about it, you go in at halftime, you're 1-0 up, you've frustrated Coventry, who've had all the chances. Like, there was one chance in particular where it looked like the ball came across to two unmarked Coventry players right in front of goal, and the one in front sort of heads the ball away from the other one, so almost denies them a goal. So we got really lucky with some of those chances. You go into halftime 1-0 up. Surely you just come out second half and just go tight at the back, sit back, and soak up that pressure. But Coventry scored reasonably early in the second half, wasn't it? I'll just have a quick look, but it just felt like everything just sort of snapped out of us.
5-7 minutes in, 52nd minute,
52nd minute, yeah. And Mason Clark didn't really know too much about it, and it's been a few games now where I think Coyle has looked leggy, or looked like he hasn't been able to, his focus hasn't been there. Where I think we'll talk Swansea, but I think Coyle having a rest or just a recharge from the bench, reset his focus might be a good thing, because that was a really basic timing of the bounce of the ball to just head it clear, and he's just completely missed it, and it's gone through to Mason Clark. Really poor goal to concede, I thought. Penalty as well. I thought Hughes was pretty rash to chop down whichever the Coventry player was, and a great pen save from Panda. I mean, we were sort of talking in the chat that there's nothing better as a supporter when you've got the opposition lining up to take a penalty and you've almost ridden it off as a goal already, and then Panda saves it. It was fantastic. It just never really felt like from that point on, like we were going to get anything from the game. Even at 1-1, it just felt like it was a matter of time.
100%. And sort of just on Coyle again, I forget that they've sort of had 3 games in a week sort of thing, and but it just sort of seemed like he was getting targeted, but they could see that he wasn't being able to defend the way maybe he should be defending, and it just seemed a little bit too easy for Coventry to get past him, and Pandal's save, love to see it, and I think that was that his first or second. I think
first pen save, I think they're saying.
So that absolutely awesome to see. But I don't know. Like I don't want to say we're shut down, but the attacking side of things didn't really throughout the rest of the game didn't really lend a hand to ourselves. We didn't really just capitalize on anything that was coming our way. But
I think the best chance that I can think of is Longman had that chance that he cut inside and at least got a shot on target, which is why I sort of feel like every game he's sort of improving and getting a bit more confidence with his shooting. And Burstow, I thought, looked really bright when he came on. I think he had one chance where he hit it over the bar, but he's another one where I feel like against both Watford and Coventry has looked really sharp off the bench.
I wonder if he'll get a starting position soon, and well, obviously we'll get to it with Swansea, but I wonder what changes there are going to be around that. But,
especially now with a week of training.
When's the Swansea? That'd be.
So I think Swansea's Saturday night. It's another early game, so it's 11:30 my time, 10:30 your time, 12:30 kickoff in the UK. And then after that, I actually thought there was another game shortly after that, but it's not until the Friday, because I thought there's normally a Boxing Day game, but that must just be Premier League.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
because we're not playing until. Well, sorry, no, it is. But I guess it is Boxing Day in the UK. It's 2 a.m. on the 27th our time, or 1 a.m. for you. So it does mean that there's just about what's that, 6 days or something. So we've had a week between Coventry and Swansea, and then 6 days from Swansea to Preston. Does give Ruben a decent amount of time to work the players, to prepare them.
I'm sure they'd be doing plenty of video sessions over the week. He probably hasn't had a chance to sort of sit down with them. Obviously in his first week, 2 weeks of employment. But I'm sure he'll be hashing out a plan a lot more, with a lot more time free. And
that's where I wonder if, like you say with the video sessions, I feel like that's almost more important than anything out on the training pitch, because it's more about them understanding the tactics and the positioning which is sometimes easier conveyed in the videos. It was interesting, actually. I heard that the plan going into the Coventry game was to really nullify the width for Coventry and try and force them more central. And like you said, like it just didn't seem like it worked with Coyle on that right-hand side being targeted. Yeah. Giles as well was getting overlapped a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So it does make me wonder why, potentially should have seen Drame coming on for Coyle at halftime or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's probably an element of just, letting the players prove themselves to an extent. But, we'll talk Swansea in a second, but it's getting to a point. It's interesting. Like we just need points on the board, really.
Yeah, that's it. So talk about players coming on. We got to see Matty Jacob.
Yeah, good shout. Yeah. I actually thought he looked all right.
Yeah, he's well, I personally haven't forgotten, but I think people forget that he's quite good, with his feet, and he looks like he can hold his own, and he's got that confidence. So I would love to see, especially if Ruben sort of favors younger players, but well, if he does, but yeah, I'd love to see some more time, depending on what the fixtures look like for the next few, but I'd like to see him have more time. It kind of reminds me, if you were to sort of mix Hughes and Jones a little bit, just sort of the way that he sort of holds himself, but obviously he's a left back. I can't remember, did he come on? Yeah, for Giles.
Yeah, he would have come on for Giles. Yeah.
So I hope to see more of him. And then Hughes got another yellow card. Which
he seems to be the only one that really picks him up quite regularly. So I think that's 6 now, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember if it's reset or we get to a certain day or not. I know the commentator was talking about that, but
yeah, I don't know how that works for him. Obviously, if he hits 10 yellow cards, I don't know. I know it resets at some point, so people who haven't had a suspension then have to hit 10 cards to get a suspension. But I presume for him, I don't know if 10 cards would still be a 2-game ban because he's had a 1-game ban. I don't really know how that works. It's a bit confusing. But he does like picking them up. He's probably the only one in the squad who does pick that. Maybe Palmer as well gets them quite regularly. I thought Palmer in this game wasn't as strong. He's probably another one if we're talking players who could have been taken off earlier. I think, was Irma even on the bench? I thought I did see something where it was interesting that I don't think he was even on the bench. So I wonder if that's... Oh, no, he was on the bench. He just didn't come on. Puerta came on, Bedia, Melham, but not Omer or Drame. I mean, he's an interesting one. I do wonder if we're talking players departing in January in order to bring in new players. Omer's flattered to deceive a little bit. Like he's not done overly well, and he's presumably one of our top wage earners. I do wonder if there's a chance that he moves back to Turkey in January, either permanently or on loan.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah, and you're right. Like I'm a big fan of him, but I don't think there's not much coming from him. One way to look at it is that obviously Walter might not have been able to get the greatest out of him, but he was around a bit for Rosinha, and he had a few good games under Rosie, I believe. When he came in January, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. Maybe this month is probably going to be his biggest month. Sort of if that is something that Ruben or the club might be thinking, this will be the biggest sort of moment in his Hull City career to sort of prove himself. And otherwise, wages have always sort of plagued us, and we sort of need to make space because we do need some pretty prolific, attacking players to come in super soon. Hopefully January covers that.
Well, so my votes for this game, I had Pedro for the 3, getting the goal, and again I thought looked really impressive in his play. Panda for the 2 for the penalty save, just about the main sort of credit in his column for that. And then Burstow, I went for the 1. I just thought he looked really bright off the bench and was deserving of a vote for this one. But how did you see it?
I got the same, Pedro, Pandor, but except number 3, I'm going to go Matty Jacob because why not?
Yeah. Why not? You sort of touched on it earlier, so maybe before Swansea, we can talk briefly. There are a few transfer rumours sort of circling around. It depends. It really depends on who you listen to and who you believe. There's been some sources in the last few days saying we're in for Harvey Nibbs and Wing. Is it Lewis Wing? I think from Reading, who, like I said in our chat, unfortunately doesn't play on the wing. It'd be very funny if he did, but he's a number 6. But then I think Baz Cooper on the 1904 podcast was saying we're not actually really looking at League One players, and he doesn't know. One person he spoke to said there's nothing to stop us getting Reading players, but someone else he spoke to said we're not really looking at Reading players. It's almost like we'll just have to see what happens. It sounds as if 1 or 2 players we're really pushing to have signed before the Leeds game, which I think is like the 3rd or the 4th of January, which is good because I think we can't see a repeat of the summer where we leave everything to the last week or 2. We really need players in as early as possible so that they can get up to speed with the team, and just integrate and just sort of hit the ground running. But outside of those, I haven't really heard any names mentioned, and it'll be interesting if we're not going after League One players. It feels like that means it must be sort of almost Premier League or Championship players not really getting game time who might sort of want to move out on loan to kind of reignite their season. But I thought the really good point that Baz made as well was you need to be really careful if you are going for Premier League. I don't know, call it Danny Ings from West Ham. You're getting someone like that in. Are they going to care if they pick up their wage? They're here for 6 months. If City get relegated, then they just go back to West Ham. You need to be really careful with the sort of player you bring in. And it makes it such a difficult window to shop in.
100%. And I think if that were to be the case, it can always potentially be the case. And I think that's like a multi-level situation where it could just be the player doesn't care too much. Like you say, collects a wage, or maybe they come in and sort of see the state of the affairs that's going on within a club, and that's obviously demotivating and could lead to the same result. But I think something that's on our side is that now we've got a new manager. Things are hopefully turning around, and obviously the next couple of fixtures are really important for the transfer window as well, just for that reason alone.
And that was the other really good point, which I find quite like football's such a fickle game in so many ways, where if we win our next 2 games against Swansea and Preston and jump up to 15th in the table or whatever it would be, clubs in the Premier League look at us and go, they're sort of mid-table. We can trust them with our players. Like Tyler Morton, for example, might go out on loan, whether he'd come here. But if we lost our next 2 games, they'd say, they're bottom of the table. They're, not good enough for us to send a player to. And it's like, well, it's just 2 results. Like it could be a Bedia handball goal again, it's such a fickle thing to determine player movements on. And I think I was saying in the chat, I'm like, you'd almost rather send, like if it's just a loan, surely you'd rather send a young player to a club doing poorly where they're going to be relying on these players and playing them every game than a Middlesbrough who might be sitting them on the bench 60% of the time,
Yeah. And it was I loved seeing Carvalho sort of come in and sort of, I think from memory, he wasn't doing too well to be able to,
in Germany,
in with his game time and whatnot, and just sort of how he's playing, and then obviously comes into comes to the Tigers and just kills it. So if we can get another one of those, that'd be amazing.
I was thinking, I was like, because I saw a rumor this morning that Kirkes from Bournemouth, the left back, is looking like going to Liverpool because they just think that Robbo's legs are going or he's not really up to it. And if they've got Tsimikas there and Kirkes, I'd love it if Robbo just turned around and went, you know what, send me out on loan to City for 6 months. They need a strong left back. I'll help fight that fire. Go for 10K a week or whatever just to repay the club. It's a pipe dream, but I'm like, just give us like a surprise shock transfer like that, and it would be brilliant.
It'd be good, I mean, Lejeun's he's the TV guy, so it'd be good for ratings.
That's it.
But I don't know. I can't think of, outside of sort of what you're talking about, I can't really think of any names that have popped up. I'm looking too far into it, but and I think talking maybe a while ago about, or maybe it was like, potentially Ruben could try bring some players with him from Reading, but I'm sort of open to all the options at the moment, and I think with the squad that we have, we're pretty solid. Hopefully we just need to start getting points, and to get points, we got to win, and that's where we're lacking is obviously in the attacking front line. So hopefully, sort that out.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue into Swansea, which I do think in more ways than one is pretty much a must-win game. Certainly, in the context of the discussion we're just having about the transfer window, I think having a couple more wins on the board and being off the bottom of the table will make us a much more attractive club and easier to sell to potential recruits. So I think winning this game could actually have a huge impact on the sort of January window that we have. They lost their last game out against Sunderland from 2-0 up. So clearly, in reasonable form. So like even to lose that game, to go 2-0 up against Sunderland, still a really impressive performance. I think we've only won 1 in our last 5 against them. We drew 2-2 at their place last season and then lost 1-0 at our place last season. And so Swansea 10th in the table, 2 wins in their last 5. Josh Hyman, of course, at left back for them as a former City player is always, a bit spicy when he comes to town. I think this is our last home fixture of the calendar year with, a massive 3 wins at home for 2024, which is utterly depressing. So hopefully we can go out with one final win.
Yeah, far out. When you put it that way, I really we come away with a win on this one. Especially I think hopefully we bring the same energy that we did with the fans. Sorry for Watford, because it sounded pretty incredible from the fans' perspective, and I don't know. I'm trying to think sort of what changes potentially might be making, who's going to come in, who's not going to come in.
Well, I'll be interested to see if Kamara's injured, because I think if he's injured, maybe you'd throw Burstow. Maybe you throw Burstow out wide. I don't know.
Nah, just throw him in. Why not? I don't know. Like
maybe Drame at right back.
That's what I mean. Like we still have so many of these players that have only had a few games sort of this season, just over a few games. So again, it'd be surprising to see if we don't change anything compared to the last game, but we definitely will need to, I think. And I'm excited to see what Ruben's been cooking over the last week.
I think that's it. I think having the full week to train and to prepare for this game, like you were saying earlier, does make this game really interesting to watch. It's his chance to really get to grips with the squad, what he's got at his disposal, get them really prepared, drilled, ready to go. I think it'll also be really it'll be illuminating for June one way or the other, because I think if we perform poorly in this game, it really does underline that we do need 2, 3, 4, 5 additions to the squad, and that Ruben can only do so much. But I'd like to think last home game for the season, it's a winnable game. Swansea in decent form, but it's really, this is the sort of game where you look at the performances against Blackburn and Watford, and you think if we replicate that, we really should be, maybe a 2-1 win. I think I would say. Yeah,
and it's funny. You can never believe it, but the Google win probability, and they always have us, even in the last few games, have had us potentially a couple of percentage over for the wins, which is really funny as a bottom table team. But
that's funny actually. I just saw that.
Yeah, it's I don't know how. Again, I don't know how they do all these calculations. I'm guessing it's related to betting odds and whatnot.
I was just gonna say, maybe that suggests that there's money to gamble responsibly, but maybe that means there's money to be made backing against City if we're getting this win favorability.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Maybe they know something we don't, but I guess it's a game to win, and I would really like us to steal 3 points. I think that would probably give even more confidence, maybe from the board into Sellers. I haven't been able to sort of see a lot of his interviews yet, so I'm probably going to do that over the next couple of days and sort of, I don't know, not to judge a character by his interviews, but we definitely did that a bit with the last guy. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it definitely changes the narrative if you're suddenly looking at 4 points from 9, a win and a draw from 3 games versus, 1 point from 3 games sort of thing. I think it just makes a massive difference. So, and, it's been, I think 13 games, is 13 games without a win, which is quite a crazy stat when we've played 21 games so far. But we're still in that position where it's like, one win just changes things so completely, where you just suddenly jump up to like 19th or 20th or something like that. And all of a sudden you're potentially putting some space between you and the bottom 3 with another win. So, I don't know. It'd be a really good way to go into that busy period over Christmas and the New Year. So hopefully we can come away with the 3 points.
Yep, I'm gonna say 2-1.
2-1 as well. Yeah, there we go. Hopefully that's the case. Just scoring 2 goals in a game would be nice. I don't think we've done that since the QPR game.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Dare to dream.
No worries. Well, thanks for joining me for this one, Dill.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much for having me.
No worries. And thanks everyone for listening in. We'll be back next week to hopefully be talking the 3 points gained against Swansea. But until then, come on, City.